now, even though it may appear that I am not live for some bizarre reason. It's not got me live this morning, or not showing my face. A massive thanks, Suzi. So for those listeners joining us live or at a later time, Suzi, your background is quite heavy into retail. In fact, I'm just going to go to, I had my notes there, flipped open, but from 2001 roughly, and I may have the date slightly wrong, to 2016, you've been involved in retail, both for the likes of B&Q and Land Securities. I think more recently for Land Securities from about 2009 to 2016, and particularly retail shopping centres. Look, you're going to know your background a lot better than I do. Do you want to? What did I miss out in that 10-second elevator pitch?
Yeah, so I actually started my career working on Regent Street when I was at CBRE for the Crown Estate, kind of doing estate management there. Then yeah, I used to acquire large stores for B&Q, and develop those out. And then yeah, latterly I used to manage a big portfolio of shopping centres at Landsec. So yeah, and know a lot of retailers personally, know how their businesses run, having worked for one as well. So yeah, kind of got a good grasp of retail for sure. So
look, as I say, it's an interesting video. Hopefully it's got you in the image. Otherwise, there, it's good. It's got yourself for some reason, not myself, just my banner there. So Suzi, it's interesting. We just did an Instagram live. Sam Norris has got me using Instagram live. I love Instagram live, but not all my followers are on Instagram. Two key things I want to get across straight away, because listeners join us at different times. So Suzi's going to be joining myself this coming Monday morning. Monday is focused on retail, the future, the high street, question mark, and looking at opportunities also for developers. So one thing which we covered on Instagram live was looking at air rights, permitted development. I just want to mention people can reach you through your website as well. So there's Strong Oak Investments, and you've also got another website as well, which do you want to just let the listeners know?
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. It's www.commercialpropertyacademy.co.uk. So I'm going to be launching some education for people who want to invest in commercial property, and on that there's a free webinar of about an hour where I talk about COVID-19, where I think it kind of leaves the markets and kind of where the opportunities are going to be. So quite relevant to today's chat.
And I have to admit, I'm open to saying, when I heard you mention about COVID-19, I listened to the video. I think you did a Facebook Live in February, and you mentioned COVID-19. I thought that's not going to impact the UK. I was completely wrong. Obviously, I was not the only person in the UK to be wrong on that as well. So, I can't, be too concerned. But you were ahead. Was there many other people in the UK at the time, Suzi, saying similar, or were you one of the very few?
I don't know. I like to think I was, Brendan, but I'm sure I wasn't. But I think that I think when you've been in property a long time, like I have, since 1995, and you're now an investor in your own right, etc. I think you kind of get clued into these clues in the economy that mean that there's going to be a drop in confidence, because at the end of the day, that's all pricing is kind of supply, demand, and confidence. And I just kind of spotted it as something that I thought could lead to that, and obviously it has. So perhaps slightly lucky on my behalf.
So lucky, but you do make your own luck, and I call it an amazing judgment, to be fair. So we've briefly looked at your background. So when were you at CBRE, Suzi?
I was there from 1995 to about 2000, so long time ago.
So you predate the 2000s in terms of your property career?
Yes, yeah. Sadly.
So 25 years maybe, or close to 25 years. So right, phenomenal.
I've seen it change a lot over that time, obviously.
So for most of our listeners, they're not going to be necessarily looking at Regent Street, Oxford Street, the Crown Estate is unlikely, and for the Crown Estate, very little. Maybe I'm wrong here as well. Very little will change. You know, for Regent Street, Oxford Street. You think that might be slightly wrong, as Susie as well. You think Regent Street and Oxford Street may change as well?
Yeah, I think everyone's going to have an impact on this. I think shopping centres are going to have a massive impact. I think you know, even prime high streets are going to be impacted, because unfortunately brands are going to go into administration. There's going to be insolvencies. There's going to be CVAs. Obviously, the primer the location, the more chance it has of survival, because you know, brands will be. I guarantee you now, what will be happening behind closed doors at retailers is they will be poring over their portfolios. They will be looking at the ones that are profitable. They'll be looking at the ones that fit their business model going forwards. They'll be frantically trying to catch up in terms of their clicks and mortar, so how they integrate their online presence with their their physical stores, and they will be picking and choosing the stores they want to keep open, and that's gonna hit all kinds of high streets across the UK.
Mm. When I say Oxford Street hasn't changed, even Oxford Street, and I don't want to go through a history lesson, even in the last decade it's changed. I can't remember when BHS closed, but it wasn't that long ago, maybe a decade at most.
It wasn't even that long, actually. So yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of, so something like Regent Street is interesting because it's in one ownership, so they can be
Crown Estate.
yeah, they can be very strategic about the way they move forward. Things like Oxford Street has been more organic, but it has it has evolved, and it's had a lot more flagship stores on it, and you know, I think it, yeah, I mean, it is prime stuff. It's out of the reach of most of us, but it has changed a lot over the last 20 odd years.
So what is in the reach for more of us? And
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, Brendan, is I think maybe it might be short term, but I think there's going to be more niche brands will rise out of this better. So I think where big brands have you know, big stores have maybe overcommitted slightly nationwide, I think where the niche brands have maybe expanded more carefully. Also, there's a point of differentiation with them. They've probably got smaller stores, they're paying less rent, they've got lower overheads. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the smaller stores on smaller high streets actually come out of this better. Then it's all about cash flow management, obviously, and how well the businesses are managed. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of the more niche retailing comes out of this better than some of the big brands, perhaps.
so niche retailing in terms of what
Yeah,
particular
so
sectors?
smaller stores. So you know, rather than the big kind of medium-sized shop units and you know, the big brands, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the smaller stores that are, you know, within the reach of more people in terms of investment. You know, the more local stores. I mean, I think going forward, it's all about, and we can talk about this more on Monday, but it's all going to be more about the kind of socioeconomic factors of the catchment and of the stores, and how well that those high streets have sustained themselves. So you know, if you've got a wealthy population on the doorstep, then you know, those high streets will probably, perhaps, will kind of have weathered the storm more. So in terms of kind of smaller investors, you know, it's not necessarily that you have to have brands all the time. In fact, I think some of the brands will really be really badly affected. So kind of more of your kind of mom and pop shops, more of your niche retailing, perhaps, could actually weather the storm better. So it'll be interesting to see.
So look, briefly we covered on Instagram Live, and people can follow you on Instagram Live or Instagram. You're on Instagram, I
Yeah,
think, as Strong Oak Investments.
yeah.
So I think you're also on LinkedIn and Facebook. I know you like Facebook. Um, in terms of air rights and permitted development, so for those who aren't using Instagram, I just want to cover this briefly. Where do you see the opportunities for developers with the reimagined high street, the new high street?
Yeah, so kind of what we were saying earlier, Brendan, was that obviously the government's going to be, so high streets are going to shrink, that's for sure. And so there's going to be financial incentives for people to develop. Also, values will have dropped, so there'll be some rebasing of values, I would suspect, in which case it'll make development more feasible. But I think the government is going to bring other measures in to it's gonna basically loosen the reins on other measures, and one of those is definitely going to be planning. Taxation may be another one, but and we were talking about how I think that one of the first ones, in fact, easy for me to say, Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, he was actually saying this the other day that he's looking at, and the government is looking in general at building above retail, and kickstarting the high streets by kind of loosening permitted development rights right across the commercial spectrum, I would suspect. So
okay, that's interesting because that hasn't appeared on my timelines, Susie. So he did say that in the last week or two.
It was it was in a Parliament session the other day. I can't take credit for watching it actually. I kind of someone told me about it, but I think that it's straight from the horse's mouth basically that the government are going to be looking at freeing up permitted development rights and loosening up planning. It might be temporary, but there will be some opportunities from it.
So that's fascinating. So it's about the power of the network again. So I was just curious, was it some material you read, but it was actually a person you spoke to who told you about that?
Yeah, it's actually Daniel Hill. I'm sure a lot of you know Daniel Hill. He's one of my mentors actually, and he's got a little, he's very clued into the economy and the government. So yeah, it's him giving credit where credit's due.
So Daniel, I've never spoken to personally. I think his company is Property Entrepreneurs or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So I know Jack or I believe Jack is a fan of Dan Hill as well. So and I know what's that?
He's a good guy. I'd really recommend people follow him on Facebook, etc.
Yeah, I've never spoken to him personally, but I know Stuart Scott is a big fan of Dan Hill as well. Look, in terms of final question, really, because we're going to have a lot more time on Monday, the opportunities you're open to. So if people listening to this at a later time, not Monday, of course they can reach you and discuss as well. What are you particularly interested in yourself?
In terms of investing, I'm basically this is the market that I've been waiting for a while. I thought the commercial market was pretty toppy the last few years. So I'm going to be investing in niche retail. I still have some faith in some retail.
That's why I wonder when you say niche retail, people might consider some clothing as niche retail. That's why I was curious what you consider niche.
Yeah, I'm talking about kind of more your. I think I'm probably talking about more location than actual type of retailer. So I'm talking about your wealthy little villages, towns that kind of bat above their weight in terms of their high streets. That's the kind of location I like. So I'm really keen to find opportunities in places like that. I'll be investing in other sectors as well in commercial, not just retail, and also I'll definitely be doing some commercial to residential as well.
Okay, brilliant. So people can reach you through your website, Strong Oak Investments as well, and so I just want to say a massive thanks. Do you have plans? I know you did quite a long Facebook Live in February. I think it was 60 minutes, something like that. Maybe it was a little bit shorter, but do you have plans to do something like that in the next month or two, or nothing quite in the pipeline?
Yeah, I did a Facebook Live last Friday actually. So if you want to go onto my profile and find it, it was just talking about kind of where I see all the different sectors at the moment in commercial, and I'll be kind of updating as things move. So yeah, I'll definitely be jumping on from time to time.
So Susie, is that for the listeners there? Is that on your own personal?
Yeah, I only have a personal page, so yeah, check me out under Suzi Carter, and I post on there.
So last Friday, I'm just trying to work out the day. Today's the 28th, so it was about the 20th of May for our listeners there. 22nd. 22nd. So for our listeners, 22nd May 2020. Susie, I just want to say massive thanks. I know it's been a little bit tricky, this interview, because you can't see me for some bizarre reason. It's the first time I've used Zoom without me being on video for some bizarre reason. So massive thanks for your time this morning. Massive thanks for your time as well going forward and prior as well. So, and I just want to thank John Corrie also, because that's where I first heard you speak. I thought, wow, the knowledge you have, which blew my mind. And I have to admit, I missed half your presentation. So,
you got the best half then, obviously.
yeah, I must have. Thanks, Susie,
My
and massive thanks to our listeners.